Hello, everybody. So wonderful to be here again. Maybe some of you guys know me. My name is Dia Dynasty, and I am one half of La Maison de Rouge. My other half, Lucy Sweetkill, will be here next week. And so today, as some of you may already know, I'm going to be talking about the Femdom Farm. It is going to be mostly my vision, sharing my vision for what I would like to see it become. It's something that has been a growing dream of mine for quite some time now. I would say that the idea of like a farm or like a space where I'd like to gather people as well as values and ideas and practices that mean a lot to me has been something that I've thought about for at least 20 years. So in the first few years of this vision coming into my my third eye, it was more based on the things that I had experienced up until that point, you know, my 20s, my 30s. And it wasn't so clear and it wasn't so fleshed out as it is now. So, you know, it was something that I had an inkling of, an idea of, that I thought would be really cool. But then I was like thinking, I think maybe I need to live a little more life. And I'm going to turn this light on so that you can see my face better. And so I knew that, you know, that I needed to collect more data and to clarify this vision. And then maybe one day I would be able to act on it, but it's also like a rather ambitious and large endeavor. So I knew it was something that I would have to wait until other people could get behind. So speaking on this idea of the Femdom Farm, of course, you know, by its name, it would be based in this idea of female rulership or femme rulership and femme policy making, but it wouldn't necessarily look like some sort of, you know, some sort of fantasy place, even though it could hold that. It wouldn't necessarily be like exactly what like a Sardak's illustration of the Femdom Farm would be all the time, even though there, of course, would be occasions and events where that would happen. The Femdom Farm is more of a holistic lifestyle space where I have written about holistic femdom in a blog post on my website. And so if you wanted to read more about that, that's definitely available. But in as far as what I guess like conceptually it would encapsulate, it would be a lifestyle of that includes all the parts of being human. So spirituality, of course, physicality, emotional and mental wellness, sexual wellness, all of the elements in honor and in harmony with each other. So water, air, earth, fire, food, animals, insects, the cycles of life and the cycles of nature and the patterns and the rhythms of nature all coming into harmony together. And so there would be what seemed like a self-organized kind of organization. And also it would definitely have a lot of areas for kink to happen. So one of the things that I had fantasized about specifically with the Femdom Farm was this little shack. And there actually exists a little shack like this on some land that I've looked at, which is in the woods. And it would hold the fantasy of something like a kidnapping scene that could happen anywhere in the world, and then, you know, be allowed to take place in the woods and this shack. And we'll get into that later. And then, of course, another major theme is kind of the idea of balance, where right now in this world, we are in the midst of kind of suffering through patriarchal capitalism, or capitalistic patriarchy, whatever you want to call it. There are a lot of tentacles of this that are influencing the world leaders, like capitalism, like white supremacy, like unfortunately a lot of toxic masculinity comes out of this, a lot of violence towards women, violence toward nature. And so my ideas for the Femdom Farm would be in effect to bring this back into balance by swinging the pendulum in the other direction, so that we can find equilibrium. Because, you know, as a pendulum swings, it goes to the extremes and then eventually finds the middle. So right now we are at an extreme, and I want to bring things to the other extreme, but with a goal in mind. So I'd like to discuss a few really important theories that I've come upon more recently, that I've been able to to crystallize and coalesce into something that can be embodied and applied and integrated into an actual space. And these theories are, first of all, ecofeminism. And and so ecofeminism is a term that was coined in the 70s by Vandana Shiva, who is an amazing, I would call her a philosopher. She's also maybe a cultural critic and theorist. She's a scholar. She has a really mind-blowing lecture that is available on YouTube that I've posted before, and which I will post right now in the comments. Let's see. We are totally equal to each other. Right. I'm going to post this right here for everybody in case you would like to check that out on YouTube. And so ecofeminism is very much about the earth and treating the earth as a living, breathing organism, and paying attention to, you know, again, like at the current moment, how things are in our world. There is a lot of violence towards nature. There is which is also mirrored in violence towards women, and nature being like plants and animals and the water and the trees and the air, energy sources. And so when you consider that the earth is a living, breathing organism in and of itself, it is relatively self-organized. There are patterns and rhythms that, you know, cycle through, just like there are patterns and rhythms in the human body and in the way that, you know, animals live and insects live, that cycle through. And it's something that is changing but constant in its change. So that kind of self-organization is something that that isn't meant to be controlled or dominated by anything else. It's meant to kind of be honored and observed and cooperated with, because you cannot change. You can try to dominate nature, but nature will always win. Ecofeminism also talks about maintaining these conditions as for humans to maintain these conditions of the earth for life to grow and evolve. And by maintaining, I mean preserving and protecting her, and by her, I mean Earth, through stewardship. And so stewardship is something that that has recently come into my awareness as an observational and respectful way of being. And yes, slave boy, men are very into ownership and power over their environment and world. And they see it as their birthright. And you're right, that is something that has become, maybe in the beginning it wasn't a problem, but when any group of people try to own or have power over something else, it means that there's oppression happening. So in my opinion, that's not necessarily true power, because true power is about sharing the power and lifting others up rather than oppressing another group of people in order to feel powerful. So in that regard, ecofeminism seeks to decolonize and decentralize power. And so that's something that, I've seen in a lot of the communities that I've been in, which are mostly inhabited by women and femmes, where we are all sharing the power, and there is no like queen or necessarily like one person who has all the power. It's not a hierarchy. It is cooperative. It is, if you want to call it matriarchal, that's cool. But I don't know that matriarchy is necessarily like the answer to patriarch or the solution to patriarchy, because there is still kind of like this hierarchy implication, and that's not really what we're going for. There is no one above all else. It's everything together. There is no or, it's and. So diversity, of course, I think is the answer, and ecofeminism seeks to embrace diversity and subsequently biodiversity, which brings in all of the elements of nature, as well as all the insects, the microorganisms, the mycelium, the everything that happens in nature naturally, which I have to say is not chemicals made in a laboratory. In fact, a lot of the chemicals that are made in laboratories have seeped into our environment, our nature, to cause a lot of problems, which result in disease, which result in destruction, which result in illness. And a lot of these can be avoided by just basically attuning to yourself. And I'm not saying that, living amongst the trees is going to cure your cancer, but maybe like if you were born in a completely natural environment, which, that seldom happens these days, there is less of a chance that you would have a chemically induced disease. So yeah, let's see. All right, some of you guys seem quite excited about this. Anyway, so tapping into your internal barometer on what you're feeling and intuiting is also a tenet of ecofeminism, kind of like returning to the self and feeling what's going on in your body and the wisdom of the body. Again, we are all a part of nature, and there is a micro and a macro organization happening all the time. So on the micro level, it's like your body. Your body knows how to heal itself a lot of times when you are giving it the right things. And I'm not saying that, people with chronic illnesses or diseases are doing this to themselves. But there's always a reason for, you know, a disease, whether it be chronic or acute. There's always a cure, a way to heal it, but it doesn't always involve Western medicine. And again, not saying that Western medicine is bad or that you should not participate in it, but it is an industry that sometimes can cause more problems. Like a lot of pharmaceuticals can cause side effects, and it has been shown that chemotherapy is like a billion-dollar industry that abates the cancer, but then the cancer comes back with a vengeance. So these are things that I've read, and I'm not a proponent of anything that anybody chooses for themselves. I mean, I am a proponent of anything that anybody chooses for themselves. I am just putting some information out there. Okay, so as well as ecofeminism being, you know, there is the word feminist and feminism in it. So it does attune to femmes and women as the original healers and caretakers of health. And I know that there have been a lot of people that, you know, are perhaps indigenous or people in ancient times that were of the female persuasion, who, you know, grew herbs, who were the ones that prepared and who had the knowledge of plants and plant medicine. And a lot of times that kind of intuitive knowing was hard to be translated into science. And so as science came about, and not to diss science at all, because, you know, science really is a method that does prove a lot of things. Science is based in testing and proof and evidence. So with a lot of like healing and kind of like intuitive healing, a lot of that couldn't be explained through science, even though some of it can. And so that caused a lot of oppression and kind of like, you know, people to be suspicious of women as healers. And that's basically how the Salem witch trials began. And I do believe that a lot of these other kind of like witch hunts have happened because of this kind of mysterious misunderstanding of how healing happens. All right, so ecofeminism is this really interesting idea that yokes together a lot of different things. It yokes together disease and medicine, nature, self-organization, structures of organization, of social organization, as well as this idea of like what the opposite of decolonization looks like. Another really important thing about the Femdom Farm that I've lived a life of cultivating is spirituality. And I think that one of the things that I've noticed that's lacking in our society is a spiritual approach to life. And what I mean by spiritual is not religious. And of course, like, religion can be spiritual, and it often is, but I don't specifically am not talking about organized religion. I think that the dogma of organized religion is also, you know, patriarchal and hierarchical and oppressive. Don't necessarily believe in hell and heaven, and so this more like holistic and spiritual approach I'm talking about is honoring that, and this is my own personal belief, that we are all spirits living inside of bodies, or living with a body. And our bodies are like these physical machines that house our spirit. And our spirit is this energetic force that animates the body. And so the spirit, as an energy, as energy, is something that can kind of connect to other things, and it connects to other people, and it connects to the patterns of nature. It connects to what's in the ground. It connects to what's in the sky. It connects to, say, plants and animals. And a lot of people might call that that spirit like prana or chi. It's got many different words in many different philosophies. More like mindfulness. Yes, more like mindfulness. Leather by Danny. So the spirit is also a force that, or like an energy within us that can drive us forward. And I think, when you're living a spiritual life, you can do anything with spirit. You can garden with spirit. You can, cook with spirit. You can love with spirit. But it's taking the idea of like this, that everything that you do is integrated into this idea of spirit, and that everything has a spirit. So the plants have spirits, the bugs have spirits. Your pet has a spirit. My plants have spirits, and it's like energies coming together and melding, being together, and like finding kinship with each other. So it's kind of abstract what I'm saying. But what I would like to bring into the Femdom Farm in terms of spirituality is an honoring of each living thing as a spirit. And so when you honor the trees, and you honor the winds, and you honor the bugs in the ground that crawl through the soil, and you honor the herbs that are growing in the gardens or in the forest, and you honor the goats, or the chickens, you take in more of the idea that all of these things are existing with you, with your spirit, and to give gratitude, and to just like, be with it. You don't need to dominate it. It has it has its own spirit. It knows what to do. It's self-organizing. It could use maybe a little protection sometimes, a little feeding. Definitely gonna have goats, Margot, Ophelia, maybe even baby donkeys. So yeah, paganism is a specific kind of a spirituality that is earth-based. And I would like to bring that into also the Femdom Farm as a way of kind of honoring nature and prioritizing nature. And of course, us being a part of nature. And let's see, another really important concept that I wanted to bring into the Femdom Farm is stewardship of the land. That is a more indigenous practice that that honors the traditions of the First Nations people, depending on where the land will be. So so I'm in New York City, and I've been looking in central New York and upstate New York for land. and not just land, but, like property that has buildings on it, as well as woods and maybe a water, like a little stream or something, a creek. Stewardship of the land, honoring indigenous practices, also takes into consideration kind of like a paganistic belief in honoring each spirit, and giving thanks for each spirit that lives in nature. All of the cycles of the seasons and the cosmos. It's animals. One of the things that I remember learning somewhere is I remember learning about when Native Americans were called Indians, how they would use the whole buffalo, and that was kind of this term that rippled forward into the idea of no waste. And that's a really important thing, that we're not wasting anything. So when you, for example, kill an animal, you eat its meat, of course, or you might save some of it for later by curing it. And then you also take its ligaments and its bones and its organs and its skin and whatever else the animal has, comes with, and you use all of it. So that was something that I found really economical. And as an Asian American, I definitely value economy. So that's something that I definitely want to bring into the Femdom Farm, is this idea of producing no waste, or not letting anything go to waste. Of course, biodiversity is really important, letting nature happen on its own, and then observing its cycles and its tendencies, and bringing a sense of of course, respect, but also care for that. So one of the things that I found really interesting about the ways that a lot of Native Americans plant is that they use this method called the Three Sisters, which is corn, beans, and squash, planting them together. And the way that they work together in physical growth, as well as the nutrients that each of them feeds into the soil and brings forth from the soil, is a very symbiotic approach to how to plant things together and have them work together in harmony. And then one of the other things that is important about land stewardship for me is observation, of course. So the idea of forest gardens and watching the way the forest grows, observing what kind of plants are indigenous and natural, and like the speed of which they all grow, and then understanding that these are very much food supplies for not just animals but also humans. And so a lot of things that the First Nations people ate, we no longer eat, because we discard them as weeds, or we don't know how to eat them, or the tradition of food of these plants has been lost to us. So one of the things that I think that's coming back is foraging, and this idea that if we reframe how we approach what is edible, we'll be able to find a lot more nutrition just in the forest without having to plant rows and rows of carrots, or having to resort to monoculture agriculture and then using pesticides. So that's something that I found to be really amazing, and even low effort, which I'm all about the low effort. And then having the agriculture be regenerative rather than destructive. And of course, this entire Femdom Farm thing is something that I cannot do alone. So I'm going to need a lot of help. And I think that that's another aspect of femdom, is that, you know, I'm not looking to build a kingdom where I'm the queen. I'm looking to share the power. I'm looking to share the knowledge, and I'm very open to other people's information and counsel in how to do all of this. I'm definitely learning a lot and seeking knowledge in all of this. One of the things that I've started doing is taking a mentorship on how to be a seed steward, and saving seeds, and, you know, how seeds relate to growing and agriculture and food, and having a relationship with my food before it hits the table and goes into my body, and blessing the food, you know, thanking the earth and thanking the food itself, and thanking all the microorganisms or the birds or the wind and the rain that helped make the food what it is. So these are all ideas that are very important to me, and they all kind of like mesh together into this huge tapestry that is definitely going to be a big part of the Femdom Farm. Let's see. So some of the ways that these values will manifest, these ideas and concepts will show up on the Femdom Farm, is, first of all, you know, I was addressing holistic lifestyle of wellness, sexual wellness, emotional wellness, honoring all of the elements. And, you know, being a city person, it's really brought me to the attention that I have been kind of out of touch with nature and its cycles. And so I've started paying a lot more attention to the cycles of the moon. And tonight is actually the autumn equinox, where the night and the day are equal in length. We enter into the dark half of the year, where the night becomes longer than the day, and it's, you know, cozy time. We you know, we've made our last harvest, whether that be actual vegetables and fruits, or more of a metaphorical harvest, where we kind of take stock of the things that we've done this year, you know, like all of our accomplishments, all of our blessings, and we live off of them for a little while. Of course, in the city, you don't have to ever stop, you know, making money or producing whatever it is that you're producing. But if you live in the country or in the wild, there comes a time when you have to stay indoors because it's too cold outside to do anything, and the snow covers everything and kind of puts everything to sleep. So another cycle of nature to be attuned to is just that as the seasons progress, that the human condition kind of, or the human behaviors kind of change a little bit too. And in wholeness, of course, you know, while we're indoors and all cozy and snuggly and stuff, there's probably going to be times when we get bored, and sex is, you know, oftentimes an indoor activity. It doesn't have to be. Sure, it's an outdoor activity quite a bit. And you know, addressing like how to make it fun, how to kink it up, how to make it like less, I guess, like repetitive in a way that can open our minds and our hearts more. So intimacy and sex are really important on the Femdom Farm, in terms of it being open and sex positive and very kinky. And that's where my fantasy of the kidnapping and captivity come in. And it's something that I've definitely thought quite a bit about. So there is a specific property that has a little shack out in the woods. It's called a sugar shack, and it's just a shack. It's like got a door, a couple windows, no furniture. It might have a floor, like a very raw and rough rustic floor. And you know, it's the perfect place to a deliverance shed. I've never actually seen Deliverance, but I can imagine what that seems like it might be. So, you know, like this idea of kind of like kidnapping somebody from the city, driving them out into nature where they're not sure where they're going because they're wearing a bag over their head. And of course, you know, this would be like negotiated and consented to beforehand. I would never just kidnap somebody off the street for free. And taking them to this little shed, um, chaining them to the floor with a very restrictive and solid metal collar. And of course, the chain would be also very solid and metal, and giving them, you know, quite a bit of room with that chain, maybe 10 feet, but also tethering it to the floor of the shack. And then leaving them with a bowl of water and a shovel so that anything that they did in the woods could be buried. And letting them just kind of live there for a little while and feel the fear and the isolation, and almost having that be like initiation. So if that appeals to you, hit me up. I will put down my all my information there. So yeah, that's definitely one of my first fantasies. I'm sure there will be a lot more. From what I recall, there have been other spaces in nature that are kink friendly that have like a human cart or a plow. And then I believe that I've also seen a human-sized roasting spit. So all of that appeals to me quite a bit. And of course, it'll be mixed in with some pagan rites, pagan rituals, you know, especially when Samhain comes along, which is the next pagan holiday. It lands near Halloween. Big bonfires, connecting with the veil between the living and the past is thinnest, so connecting with that kind of stuff. Okay, more of the manifestations and the expressions of all of these ideas and concepts would be a medicinal herb garden, which will definitely have a lot of stinging nettles, so that we can stuff them in your diaper or spank you with them. There will be temporary structures of worship, and those can happen, you know, those can be built by certain people, and they can contain certain things. And then these worship rituals can also be really fun and kinky. There will be an apiary, so I'm definitely planning on raising bees. And let's see. Have you read Ecosexuality by Beth Stevens? No, I have not, but I am definitely going to copy and paste that. I'm going to actually type that into my little notes here. Thank you, Miss Lynn. By Beth. I love Annie Sprinkle. Thank you for that. Okay, so apiary, bees. Bees are a very important part of nature. Bees have also, many bees have been wiped out by the pesticides from industrial agriculture, unfortunately. And so we have to try to get the bee population back up. And I think, you know, if I'm going to have some slave help on the farm, which I definitely intend to, there will be some education around how to tend to bees. And if you're bad, you have to go tend to the bees with your whole bee bonnet and costume, but maybe the crotch cut out. So I think that'd be really fun. There will be off-grid power and off-grid water. There will be renewable and sustainable energy sources like solar, wind, and very little fossil fuel use. There will be conscious consumption of everything. So living in the city, you know, it's very easy to kind of like get lost in the technology ether where you're just online for many hours at a time. And I think, you know, sometimes that can cause mental problems, issues, disturbances, where it affects our mood, or it affects our health eventually. We're tuning into too much news, consuming way too much social media, and getting stressed out from it, getting anxious. And that will be something that will be done more conscientiously on the Femdom Farm, because internet will be limited. But also, you know, like conscious consumption of food and water, food being something that we have more of a relationship with because we're growing it and foraging it. And then, you know, animals also, like if we decide we're going to slaughter a goat or something, then somebody has to slaughter the goat. You know, it's not going to slaughter itself, and we're not going to take it to the butcher to do it. We're going to learn how to slaughter a goat. So, and then we'll have goats too. You know, that's what we do on the Femdom Farm to celebrate Goat Day. No, I don't know. There's no such thing as Goat Day yet, but that might be something, you know, that we all learn and could be ceremonial, because we will be honoring animals and their spirits. So that's pretty much all I have for how all of this stuff will show up. And I have a question. Let's see. I have a couple questions. Vegetarian? No, I'm not vegetarian. Let's see. Leather by Danny. The COVID 2-week quarantine before allowed on the farm. Well, I'm talking about this farm in its ideas. So I don't really know what's going to be happening when the farm actually does, you know, start. You know, I can't give you a date yet, so we'll see. That remains to be seen. Let's see. Salomon. Okay. Do you notice a difference between female slaves and male slaves? It's a pretty basic question. Yes, it is a pretty basic question. Yes, I absolutely notice a difference between female slaves and male slaves. And if you want me to go into that, I can go into that later, because it's a pretty long answer. But the answer to your pretty basic question is yes, I do. How big will the farm be? That's a great question. Let's see. Right now, the property that I've already kind of started to move forward with is 100 acres. It's probably 55% woods and 45% pasture, garden, and buildings. So that's actually an ideal proportion and size. And I think that with enough woods, you know, it will feel like wild and wildernessy, and there will be some little woodland creatures and maybe some, you know, predators in there, which would be fun. I know it sounds really like naive for me to say fun, but you know, I'm really looking forward to being closer to nature and all of its dangers, because I do recognize that there are a lot of dangers. But yeah, about 100 acres would be ideal. Let's see. Was about sorry, the COVID comment was about your shake. My shack, maybe? Yes, and Leather by Danny, that's the fantasy, you know, so it's not something that I'm going to make a reality just yet. Celeste asks, would you reside on the farm? Any goal on timing? I think that it would be a slow transition for me to eventually full-time reside on the farm. It's it's, you know, off the grid living is something that I would have to acclimate to and learn quite a bit about. Right now, I'm based in New York City, and most of my sessions and interactions happen based in the city as well. So I think that I would always keep some like a foot in the city, and I don't really have a timeline. I'm not really a timely kind of person, I'm sorry. But if you check back in a year, I could probably give you a better answer. All right. Robert asks, rules of the farm, own set of laws / regulations to adhere to. So one of my ideas actually, Robert, is to establish the farm as a religious community. And that has more to do with tax breaks. If I applied for a 501c3 nonprofit status for a religious organization, I would create this community to be pagan. And as an ordained minister, which is such a joke to me, I would definitely, consider that the rules would be based in paganism. And so there would be certain rites and rituals, a certain, bit of initiation, maybe the shack in the woods. And that's kind of as far as I've gotten with the laws and regulations. I don't know that that I would create necessarily a central doctrine, because if it slowly grew to be actual community living or a commune, each person would have to be vetted, through me, of course, and I guess I would have to stay very connected to my intuition about people. I can't try to eliminate conflicts, so there would definitely have to be like some sort of conflict resolution and restorative justice. So that's definitely something to look into and to consider. Thanks for asking, Robert. Let's see, Brockington's, will you sell living and camping space? That's a good question. I doubt that we are going to do much in the way of anything capitalistic. The economy, in my opinion, of the Femdom Farm should be more of a care economy. And granted, we'll have to use money in some way and engage with capitalism to an extent, but it's not going to be a commercial space. So if there is any living and camping for sale, it would be done on more of a trade basis, and for trading for labor or something. Let's see. Do you envision or envisage a democratic governing? Would cis males have less voice in decisions? I don't believe in absolutes. So I'm not going to say, yes, cis males would have less of a voice in decisions. I believe that there are cis males who have valuable input for decision making. I don't know very many yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not out there, and that doesn't mean that I won't consider what they have to contribute. So talk to me in a little bit, and I'll give you a better answer. All right, next question. Thank you, Margot Fiole. I'm just gonna put that up there. It's not a question, but she says, you're incredible, and I'm so here for this vision. Well, just know that you're invited anytime. And let's see this question. How many and what kind of structures will be on the farm? Let's see. This place that I have in my sights, it's got a main house with 5 bedrooms. It has a kind of like a half-finished apartment, which has 2 bedrooms. It has a storage shed, which has no bedrooms and a dirt floor. It has an enormous red barn, which is filled with hay, and then has like animal quarters downstairs. And there's 2 silos, which could be turned into little towers. And then there's the sugar shack, which is in the woods. So that's what I'm looking at right now in terms of what's already available on this specific property that I'm looking at. But I'm envisioning also temporary structures like yurts, and little lean-tos and things like that, where people can kind of camp, but also possibly even live. Possibly even like a tiny little log cabin hermitage for somebody that needs some isolation. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But I also am interested in preserving the land and not really, putting too many people on it at one time, unless they really, really know what they're doing and how to preserve the natural order of things. All right, next question. I'm Tim Buss. When do you see this beginning? I don't have an answer for that because I don't have a timeline. I can tell you right now that there is a specific property that I'm looking at, which has all these things that I just mentioned. And so it probably wouldn't be till next year at the very, very earliest, as far as me personally inhabiting the land. But as far as like the greater vision, I think that will develop over time, and it'll be something that, depending on how much help I get and how much like funding is available, which actually I'm going to start a GoFundMe. So if you guys want to help speed things up, then you can always contribute a little bit of support. All right. See, Robert says, how did your very first inspiration for the Femdom Farm come about? I actually shared this in the very beginning, and it was maybe a few years ago when the first inception of like, not exactly the Femdom Farm, but something like it. Like I used to call it the castle, where I wanted to gather all the people that I cared about, as well as, their people, and have a place to gather all kinds of people and to create. So in its first iteration or inception, it was not a Femdom Farm. It was more like just a place of creativity. At the time, I was, very I was very entrenched in the drag culture, and I don't want to say entrenched. I was very involved in the drag culture. I had a lot of drag queen friends and a lot of performers, a lot of like circus type people. I was in a drag band, and so my first idea was that it would be like a castle that was all about creative performances, and would have like theater and like a stage and a place, like a costume workshop and stuff like that. But that was probably 10 years ago, and so it's evolved into something that includes more of my current interests as well. Next question. Would submissive female / male submissives be separate? I think both genders' submission is beautiful. Not exactly. I don't think there's, I'm not really sure what you mean by separate. Everybody would be honored in the capacity that they're allowed to, or that they're, able to work. Each person has their own talents and skills. Each person will come with a different life story, and so we have to take that into consideration. There is no like one size fits all, and I'm not going to divide things on a binary based on gender. There will be non-binary people. There will be non-gender conforming, there will be like trans, it's going to be like, a whole gender spectrum, not just male and female. So that's something to keep in mind when asking questions like that. Let's see. David says, I've heard of toilets which can turn solid waste into charcoal for energy. What do you think? Yeah, sounds great. I don't intend to use charcoal. I intend to mostly burn wood. But if there are toilets that can turn solid waste into charcoal, I might consider it. Burning coal is kind of like the last thing on my wish list. Let's see. Out of all your Femdom friends, who do you think is going to totally rock being on the Femdom Farm? Well, I think definitely all my nature-loving femdoms. So I think anybody that wants a part, that wants to reconnect with nature through gardening, through foraging, through maybe like engineering hydroelectricity, who wants to maybe be like the plant goddess, or the water goddess, or the fire goddess, or the earth goddess, wants to tend to these things, would be welcome. I'm pretty sure that Domina Yuki would be interested in maybe like some aspect of that. And yeah, I mean, like, I think I definitely think that Mistress Lillian and Ophelia would be really fun, and take to that as well. Let me think. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty new endeavor for me to start sharing, so I haven't really heard too much from anybody else in the way of the Femdom friends as to what they're interested in precisely. I think Lucy Sweetkill would be really great for like slave organization and coordination. Yeah, so yay, it would be an honor. Would you have mindfulness retreats for stressed urbanites? Maybe. Retreats take a lot of organization, and I would be happy to facilitate that if somebody else wanted to organize it. I would already have so much to manage, that creating a whole retreat would be even more to manage. And I'm definitely open to the idea as long as I have the time and the energy for that. But if you specifically, David, wanted to come because you're a stressed urbanite, you wanted to come and do a little bit of, nature and healing and everything, then definitely, by all means, contact me. As a yoga teacher, I would definitely provide some degree of like yoga practice, and definitely like a hiking and connecting with nature in some ways. So that's actually a really great idea. Just a lot of work. Okay, I didn't mean to sound limiting in my questioning. Just a new female sub trying to find my place. Yes, and now that you say that you're a female sub, like, cool. But I like to treat each person individually. I'm not trying to like group too many people based on gender. That's why I say that, like, I have pets and devotees who are trans, who identify more on the femme spectrum or on the masculine spectrum, or who don't identify or who are gender fluid, so it's like it depends on each person. And I think that that's really important, is that we honor each person as they are instead of trying to put them into a category. Let's see. Carmen says Ophelia is going to be BFFs with the goats and plants. Well, I kind of figured that she would, and that is why she's absolutely welcome to come and be the goat and plant queen. Along the lines of fire, earth goddess, what element do you align with? That's a really great question. I think like I'm in the space of the pandemic and the absence of so many like kind of structural routines and stuff like that, I identify with the space goddess. I am a total space case. But not in the way that like I can't, come back down to earth and do the things that I need to do to take care of my body and my life. I just like a lot of space around things. Like I am most comfortable in solitude. I am most comfortable in the quiet. And I thrive best in silence. I also have, I was interviewing Anya Avalon the other day, and we kind of related to this thing of like taking our time and really kind of being left to do things at our own pace. And I think that that's something that's really important to me. So like space or ether, I would say, is an element that I identify with very much. As well as fire, I think that fire as my sun and moon signs are really important to me, because being the spark of inspiration and lighting the way and holding the flame, holding a torch, being a beacon, all of that is also very important to me and something that I feel is pretty natural. Ether as in ethereal. Yes. Not as in, what's the alternative? Any pigs? I mean the actual species. I don't know. I don't have everything planned out right now. I can tell you that I would prefer to have smaller animals like goats, maybe a mini donkey, and definitely chickens and like maybe some ducks and geese. But pigs are they grow really big, as do cows, and they eat a lot. So that's something to consider in terms of like how much food I would have to provide for them. And not that they don't have their benefits and charms, but I'm looking to start small and grow. So maybe some pigs in the later years. We'll see. All right. So if anybody has any more questions, I will take 2 more questions, and then I'm going to go do something else. But so just so you know, I'm still going to be fully involved in La Maison de Rouge. And if you would like to support us in these trying times, because you appreciate the work that we do, please consider subscribing to our Patreon. And that is something that is scrolling at the bottom across. So patreon.com/La Maison de Rouge. The monthly goodies are video chats with Lucy and myself, as well as subtasks, which aren't like, they're not like, self-debasing or degrading or anything. They're more self-reflecting and possibly even like self-improving. So let's see, a couple more questions. Again, I want to apologize. No, it's not. Salome, I don't think that your questioning was limiting or disrespectful. I just wanted to, like, you know, I was answering not just for you, but for other people. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, I included other people who weren't necessarily identified as either male or female. And then I'm Timbus. How long would an initiation last? And can you explain it a little bit more? No, because that is a secret thing. Initiations are done in secret, and they are secret rituals. I can tell you that there would probably be like, let's say, a little bit of struggle in it. And I'm not going to name how, but it's not going to be something that kills you, and it's not going to be something based in a phobia. So, you know, initiations are usually secret rites, just so you know. All right, so thank you guys for asking such awesome questions and for tuning in. I hope that you gained some things, some insights and some inspirations from this, and I would absolutely love to hear from anybody that that is interested in trading labor on the Femdom Farm, or helping me realize the fantasy of the kidnapping into the sugar shack. Thank you, Mistress Bond. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, David. You guys have been so awesome. If we have ideas / places to help with this, would you like emails? Sure, why not? You can email me. You can hit me up. If you have my email already, you can email me. You can hit me up on Twitter, web, and, you know, write something in the form and email that. Let's see, my website is, here we go. These are my social media handles and my website. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And next week will be with Lucy. So I'll see you the week after that. And have a wonderful week. And blessed be. Happy equinox.